As a doctor in one of the poorest states in India,
Yes.
and as a civil liberty activist,
Yes.
how do you assess Naxalism in its present form? How do we assess Naxalism in its present form?
It's difficult for me. I'm not an expert on Naxalism, and it's not possible for me to make an assessment of Naxalism. I think that there is a problem of structural violence. I think that we have the elements of a democratic state in India, that we need to take the opposition to the problem of the structural violence of this situation, including the genocidal elements that I talked about earlier. We need to take it forward and all work together to bring about a situation of justice, peace and equity. I will not be able to assess Naxalism because I am not an expert on that subject.
But you said we have to work really hard
Yes.
to bring about justice, the
Yes.
perception of justice
Yes.
in the mainstream thought.
Yes.
How do we do that, sir?
I think that as a human rights worker, my stress is on civil action and large-scale civil action. That means that we will try to involve as many people as possible to understand the problem. I'm really surprised that although our country has such a very sophisticated statistical apparatus, that ordinary citizens are totally unaware of the problem of widespread malnutrition amounting to a state of chronic famine that I have already outlined before you. This should become common knowledge. The idea that the access of expropriated communities to common property resources is essential for their survival. This should become common knowledge. The idea that the act of forcibly removing them from their access to common property resources, whether through peaceful means or through the force of arms, is likely to result in a genocidal situation. We have already seen similar genocides in our recent history in North America, in South America, in Australia. Now we have a situation where the Indian propertied classes they do not have another country which they can go and exploit. So they are turning their gaze inward, and the indigenous populations of India are being put at risk. This is a situation which is not tolerable for any democratic politics, from the point of view of any democratic politics. And so it is essential for those who believe in a wider democracy and in justice and peace to intervene, to see that this process is halted as soon as possible.
Do you see such consciousness rising amongst people?
I believe that people are extremely worried. I have been extremely heartened by the widespread public approbation of the fact that the Supreme Court granted me bail, and in the process the judges stated very clearly that in their view the sedition charge did not stand. This has been widely welcomed in our country, that is my perception. And the reason why it has been widely welcomed is not because of what a great guy I am. It's because people are extremely worried about the state of affairs which I have been trying to put before you. The fact that people are very widely disturbed by this reality uh, is a good sign for us, because where this disturbance is present, we can put a more reasonable line of argument before the people, which I believe that in the interests of peace and sanity, they will be interested to take forward.
But when it comes to creating communication between these worlds, these very different worlds that exist simultaneously in the same country, there are thousands of barriers: language, civilizational values, cultures. So how do we go about it?
See, we can only have recourse to the processes over which we have control. The weapons over which we have learned how to use and which we are willing to use, and in our case those weapons are the weapons of civil action, of peaceful civil action, to take our case to the people and to try to convince them that this, and I am extremely, once again, the Supreme Court has made very significant observations in the recent past, including saying that this nation cannot survive with two categories of humanity within it. So this is something that we have been saying for a long time. To hear it echoing back at us from the Supreme Court, this is something that gives us a lot of hope.
The whole Free Binayak Sen movement,
yes,
and the campaign that there was,
yes,
almost an international one.
Yes,
Garnered,
it was an international, national and an international campaign.
It
yes.
garnered a lot of interest, and it did show that people indeed can, come together for causes which are not really popular.
Yes.
How has it been for you on a personal front?
No, to be in jail for anyone, it would be a great trial, and to be in jail for causes which are on charges that are false, patently false, would be even more difficult. And then on top of that, to be in jail on a charge of treason, basically that's what it amounted to. For me, I am conscious that I have never betrayed my people or my country, and so the charge of treason lay very heavily on my heart, and so that was extremely difficult and trying for us, and it was also extremely difficult and trying for my family and for my larger circle of friends. So it was not easy or pleasant for anyone, but at the same time, these are very large societal processes. So I am just one very small link in that entire phenomenon. So just as I would not like my personal angst to be, I cannot minimize it. At the same time, it's necessary to realize that there are people dying on these issues, and there are people suffering from all the kinds of inequity that I have described. So this is something that is very important to remember, to have a sense of proportion.
Has there been anything about the Free Binayak Sen campaign that has been uneasy for you to accept? As in, there was a lot of media attention.
Yes.
Generally, the media refrains from these issues.
Yes.
But on your issue, the media did give it a lot of space.
Yes.
But when it comes to issues of say Adivasis or the inequity,
yes,
the media isn't very excited about it.
No, I think that so I'm very grateful to everybody who took up my cause, and I'm both at the national and at the international level. there were a wide variety of people who took up this issue, and I am very grateful to all of them. But at the same time, if what you say is true, and it is true, I mean, in the sense that there are major processes the processes that we have been discussing. Our view is that they do not receive the attention that is their due. But this is something that we all need to work together to try and change. I don't think pointing fingers is going to achieve a great deal.
In terms of in India, based on my studies of China, Thailand, South American countries, that there seems to be a space for dissent. That unfortunately, what happened with you, but at the end, justice did prevail, and I would just wanted your opinion on it. Do you feel that in our country, there is a space for people who want to raise an anti-government voice, who have a stand against the government, and the government creates a space for them to exist without putting...
Well, this is precisely what sedition is about. That sedition is about the validity of dissent and the necessity of dissent in a democracy. If you do not have the possibility to dissent in a democracy, then what is the democracy about? Because the democracy is about governance by consent. Now, the whole issue of consent only becomes real when dissent is also possible and equally valid. Otherwise, you do not have consent becomes meaningless.
Yes.
It becomes just like a doll's game. So we have to have the possibility of dissenting. So sedition says that dissent is illegal, that dissent is disloyal, and so that is why we feel that sedition law needs to be repealed, and all laws that are similar to the law of sedition also need to be repealed. That's the idea.
At the same time, I just wanted to, you have someone like Mr. Isaac Moiva, who is, General Secretary of an underground organization. He's been given protection by the state, been given a house in Lodi estate. Yeah. You have the Ulfa, who now this is a second group of experts who the government has set up to have negotiations.
Excuse me, I am a human rights worker.
Yes, sir.
I am not an expert on all these processes.
Sir.
I have not studied these processes in any kind of detail. So I would not like to comment on this just on the basis of my general knowledge. It makes no sense. So I have already said what I wanted to say. So these, I'm not an expert on the Northeast. We have been asking for repeal of Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Now that is very clear. We have no doubt about that. That the existence of Armed Forces Special Powers Act and the kind of illegalities, or rather, one shouldn't say illegalities, the kind of breaches of human rights that are taking place under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act are not acceptable.
Yes.
But apart from that, to go into a full-scale analysis of the political situation in the Northeast, it's beyond me, because I am not an expert on that.
I'm sorry, I wasn't looking at the Northeast. I was just trying to ask you in terms of where there have been other examples of people who have raised anti-national voice, have been given a space which the central government has provided and has to some degree facilitated talks to reach a certain conclusion.
Yeah.
So based on that, I just wanted to know if, in your opinion, you feel that there is a space for dissent in India at some level or the other.
There is a space for dissent. Obviously, there is a space for dissent in the sense that that some forms of dissent are being possible. But that space is shrinking. This is our feeling. That space is shrinking, and it is incumbent on us as members of civil society to extend that space and make sure that democracy is preserved in its pristine form, and that the space of democratic space that is available to us is not allowed to wither away.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.